Ross Baumgarten, one of the finest young left-handers in the American League. And Ross, you're out of the Chicago area, and I suppose this area has produced a lot of fine ball players.
Well, Harry, I think it has. We have John Costino, who I played with in high school at New Trier East. He plays very good third base for the Minnesota Twins. And Scott Sanderson, who won 16 games last year for the Montreal Expos. And a good friend of mine, Dewey Robinson, who's had a little bit of time up here in the big leagues. And he's now pitching for Edmonton. So all in all, this area has produced some major leaguers in the last few years, and I'm sure will continue to do so in the future.
Yeah, there's Bill Gullickson with Montreal also, and then, of course, Greg Lazinski's from this area. Is there any particular coach in high school or manager in the minor leagues who you would say had something important to do with your development?
Well, I think the guy that comes to mind first and foremost is my high school coach, Ron Klein, at New Trier East. For a high school coach, he drilled into us the fundamentals of the game, and I can remember something very important that he taught me, and that had to do with my follow-through, where I would, with my lead foot, I wouldn't throw across my body, and that's one of the major causes of rotator cuff injuries. So I'm most grateful for him for teaching me the fundamentals of the ball game.
Ross, you're an intelligent, articulate young man. I would imagine that you have definite ideas of what it takes to get a hitter out. Do you more or less call your own game, pitch your own game?
Well, in the past few years with the catchers that we've had, I have called my own game. I'm doing less of that this year because I have a lot more confidence in our catchers, Carlton Fisk, Jim Essien, and Mark Hill. They know the league very well. They're experienced, and they've seen these hitters a lot more than I have, so I'm leaning on them a lot more heavily this year than I have in the past.
I would imagine that no matter what level of the game you're at, the battle is an unending one to improve yourself, and it's just as true once you've made it in the big leagues as it is in the minors. Now, as you go along, do you think in terms of what to add in the way of another pitch, or do you think in terms of just more perfection on the pitches you do throw?
Well, I think that's a problem that a lot of young pitchers have. They try and throw too many pitches and try and throw 5, 6, 7 pitches, and what happens is you lose the productivity that you have on the basic 4 pitches that you should throw in a ball game. I'm more or less trying to perfect my fastball, trying to perfect my curveball, trying to perfect my slider, and trying to perfect my changeup. And I feel that if I can perfect those or get as close to perfection as possible, that'll be enough for me to win in the big leagues.
Do you think there should be a limitation as to, little leaguers, let's say, youngsters, not even of high school age, who aspire to be big league stars and maybe want to be a pitcher? Would you permit them to start throwing breaking balls, or do you think that they could hurt their arm that way?
Well, Harry, I think I'm in the Mike Marshall school of thinking on that matter. He suggests that a pitcher shouldn't throw breaking pitches until he's about 18. I think at least 14 years of age until they get to high school. And I think there's a definite reason for that. The way that you need to throw a curveball and a slider, it does hurt the arm. It does prohibit the muscles from growing properly. And a lot of young kids can hurt their arms trying to throw the curveballs and the sliders and the screwballs. But I think 14's the ideal age, and up until that age, I think that young pitchers should concentrate on just throwing their fastball and their straight changeup for strikes, and try and move the ball as much around the strike zone as they can, and that in itself will get a lot of people out.
I guess this encompasses then just about all the advice you'd give to a youngster who wanted to be a pitcher.
That would be about it. Just try and perfect the fastball and the changeup, and try and throw strikes with both pitches at least 75 to 80% of the time, and that'll get a lot of big leaguers out. And later on in life, when you reach the age of 14 or so, you can start to throw the curveball or the slider.
Hey, thank you, Ross.